I let my brother host his wedding reception in my house. He told everyone he was moving in like it was already decided. When he actually showed up with a moving truck, I decided he was out of my life. I, 28, male, build things that go to space for a living. Aerospace engineer sounds cool, but what it really means is long hours, constant problem solving, and living on takeout for years while trying to prove yourself. It paid off, though. Last year, I bought a 4-bedroom place in Northern California. Nothing insane, just clean, quiet, and mine. Every nail, every beam paid for with my own work. My younger brother, Jimmy, 25, male, is the total opposite. If I'm the guy who plans 10 steps ahead, he's the guy who trips over step 1 and somehow blames the stairs. He's been laid off twice already this year, says the companies were toxic. Translation, he showed up late and expected promotions for existing. Mom and Dad, Robert and Patricia, still treat him like a genius in disguise, who just hasn't been discovered yet. To them, Jimmy's potential is endless. Meanwhile, my achievements are expected. I get the classic, "You're so lucky," your smart speech every family dinner, followed by a reminder that Jimmy just needs a break. I stopped arguing years ago. You can't debate logic with people who worship delusion. When Jimmy announced his engagement, I was honestly surprised anyone agreed to marry him. Her name was Heather. First time I met her, she was sweet, polite, called me such an inspiration. She even brought cookies. My parents looked like they'd won the lottery. She's perfect for Jimmy, Mom said. Grounded, responsible. Yeah, right. The first time I saw the way she looked at my house, I could tell she wasn't just seeing a home. She was seeing square footage. A week later, Mom organized a big engagement dinner at their place. Family everywhere. Jimmy walked in holding Heather's hand like he just invented love. I congratulated them genuinely. I might think my brother's a walking headache, but I don't root against family. Dinner started off normal enough until Mom smiled at me across the table. "Jordan," she said, "since you're doing so well now, maybe you could help your brother out a little with the wedding expenses." Fork halfway to my mouth, I froze. "Help how?" I asked, already knowing where it was going. "You know," she said, tone like it wasn't a loaded question. "Just chip in. It'd mean so much. Family supports family." Jimmy grinned. "It's not a big deal, bro. We're just a little tight right now after the layoff." I set the fork down. "Mom, I'm not paying for the wedding." She blinked like I'd said something offensive. "It's not about paying for it. It's about being part of it. I'll show up, eat, clap, and go home. That's as part of it as I want to be." The table went silent for a second. The kind of silence that says everyone's waiting for me to back down. But I didn't. "I worked for what I have," I added. "I'm not anyone's backup plan." Heather tried to smooth things over. "Of course, we totally understand. You've worked so hard, and we'd never want to pressure you." The words were right, but the smile didn't match. That's when I realized she was good, really good, at reading the room. The rest of dinner was small talk, stories, jokes, everyone pretending the moment hadn't happened. But as the plates cleared, Mom leaned in again with that casual tone she uses before dropping a bomb. "You know, Jordan," she said, "your backyard would be perfect for a wedding." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "Mom, my house isn't a venue." "Oh, but it's beautiful," she continued. "You have all that open space and the patio. It would save them so much money." Jimmy jumped in immediately. "Yeah, bro, that would actually be amazing. Just the ceremony, or maybe both. We'll figure it out." I looked at both of them. "No, I just finished landscaping. I'm not turning my home into a circus." Mom gave me that disappointed stare that used to work when I was a kid. "You're always so defensive. We're just talking." "Then let's stop talking about my house," I replied. That killed the conversation, at least for the night. When I finally got in my car, I sat there for a moment, watching the house lights behind me. Same pattern as always. Jimmy makes a mess. Mom and Dad hand him a mop, but I'm the one expected to clean it up. I thought about all the little money favors they'd hinted at over the years. Just a loan. Just a small help. You can afford it. And how I'd said no every time. It never changed. Anything changed. They just got more creative with the guilt. In my family, no isn't a boundary. It's an invitation to argue. And I was about to find out just how far they'd go. 2 months after that dinner, my phone started blowing up in the family group chat. Pictures of flowers, cakes, and table settings. Jimmy had big news. They'd officially booked a fancy local venue, some vineyard out by Napa. Everyone was hyping them up, like they'd just landed a royal deal. Mom wrote, "So proud of you two for being responsible." Dad added, "See, hard work pays off." I didn't respond. For once, it looked like I was off the hook. Then 3 months later, I got a call from Mom. The tone said everything before the words even landed. "Honey, I don't know how to tell you this, but the venue fell through." I leaned back in my chair. "Fell through? How?" "Well," she started, "apparently the deposit got messed up. The owner double-booked them or something." I could already smell the lie through the phone. "So they're getting their money back?" "Not exactly. There was a misunderstanding," she said, drawing out the last word. "Anyway, they've lost the spot and can't afford another one. Poor things are devastated." I didn't say anything. There was a pause, and then the real reason for the call came out. "Jordan, we were thinking—" "No," I cut her off. "You don't even know what I was going to say. You were going to say I should host the wedding at my house." "Well, maybe just the reception," she said softly, like that made it better. "You'd really be saving the day, sweetheart." I rubbed my forehead. "Mom, no, I'm not turning my property into a wedding hall." "Just one night," she pleaded. "You have the space, and it would mean so much to Jimmy. He's been having such a hard year with that layoff and everything. You've got to have some compassion." "Having compassion doesn't mean giving away my house," I said flatly. But she wasn't giving up. Within an hour, I had missed calls from Dad, 2 aunts, and even my uncle, who never calls anyone. The script was the same. Family helps family. You'll only regret it if you say no. Don't be stubborn. By the next day, Jimmy texted me himself. "Hey bro, I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. We already sent the invitations. I'll pay you back for any damages. Promise." That part made me laugh. Jimmy promising to pay anyone back was like a goldfish promising to stop swimming. I ignored him for a full day. The next evening, Mom called again. "Please, Jordan, think of Heather. Her family already booked flights. This would break her heart." And that's how it always worked. Make it emotional. Make it my responsibility. After 2 straight days of begging, guilt, and emotional blackmail, I caved. But on my terms. "Fine," I told Jimmy. "You can have the reception here. Not the ceremony, not a week-long setup, just the reception. And there are rules." "Anything, man," he said instantly. Way too fast. "Maximum 100 guests," I started. "Ends at 10 p.m. sharp because of the noise ordinance. No one goes inside except to use the bathrooms. You pay for cleanup, rentals, and liability insurance. If anything gets broken, you fix it immediately." He hesitated for a second, but then said, "Deal. You're seriously the best, bro. Heather's going to freak out." Yeah, I bet she would. The next afternoon, I heard the doorbell. Heather stood there, all smiles. "You're a lifesaver, Jordan. Seriously, you saved our wedding." She walked through the living room like a real estate agent, complimenting everything, but somehow making it sound like she owned it. "You've done such a great job with this place. The backyard's incredible. If we just add a few lights and maybe clear out some of the patio furniture, it'll be perfect." "Nothing's getting cleared out," I said. "You'll have plenty of space." "Oh, I didn't mean permanently," she said quickly, smiling. "Too big, just for the night, for photos." "Heather, I work in aerospace. I plan every inch of my space carefully, so the answer's no. She laughed like it was cute that I said no. You're funny. I wasn't joking. Jimmy wasn't any better. He'd text me random updates about how stressed he was, throwing in lines like, "Man, wish I had your kind of stability," or "You're lucky you don't have to worry about money." It was obvious he wanted me to feel guilty for having what he didn't. I wasn't falling for it. By the end of the month, they had every vendor in the county lined up. Caterers, photographers, florists. All of them wanted to see my backyard to plan logistics. I started turning them away at the gate. One day, I caught Heather there again, this time with her mom. They were walking the property line with a measuring tape, like they were designing a park. "Heather," I called out, "did we forget what I said about permission?" She turned wide, smile still plastered on. "We're just visualizing. Nothing's changing." "Then visualize from the sidewalk," I said. Her mother gasped like I'd slapped someone. Heather's smile twitched, but she said, "Of course, we'll leave." They left. 10 minutes later, my mom called me. "Why are you being rude to Heather? She's trying her best. You're making this so hard for everyone." That was when I realized this wasn't about helping family anymore. It was about control. I'd opened the door an inch, and they were already trying to drag me through it. And deep down, I knew this was just the warm-up. A week later, my phone started buzzing again. Random relatives asking about my brother's wedding at our house. The first time I saw that phrase, I thought it was a typo. But then it kept popping up. "Can't wait to see the backyard." You guys must be so excited, you guys. I opened Facebook, scrolled through Heather's latest post, and there it was, in plain text. "Can't wait to celebrate our big day at our home, surrounded by friends and family." My home, my backyard, but apparently now their home. I called Jimmy immediately. "Why are you telling people the reception is at your house?" He sounded half asleep. "It's not a big deal, man. It's just easier that way. I didn't want to stress you with details." "Not stressing me. You're literally making it sound like you live here." He sighed. "You always get so technical about everything. It's just wording, right?" "And wording becomes lies when it's repeated enough," I said, then hung up before I said something worse. 2 days later, I got an email from the caterer confirming final numbers. 192 guests. I thought it was a mistake. I called the company. "Yeah," the woman said cheerfully. "Your brother approved it yesterday. You've got a big crowd coming." I nearly dropped the phone. "No, I approved 100 guests, not 200. She paused. "He said you expanded the list since it's family." Of course he did. I texted Jimmy. "Why is the guest list double what we agreed on?" He replied 10 minutes later. "Miscommunication. Heather's family is bigger than we thought. Fix it. 100 maximum." "Come on, bro. People already bought tickets. You can't uninvite them now." Not my problem. He left me on red. By that point, I was done playing nice. I sent him a message outlining the new rule. No paperwork, no reception. I wanted a one-page house rules acknowledgement signed immediately. Basic terms until my lawyer sent the formal contract. When he finally came over, he looked like a kid caught stealing. Heather tagged along, acting bubbly. "You're so organized, Jordan," she said, fake laughing as I slid the papers across the table. "We totally trust you." "It's not about feelings," I cut in. "It's protection. If someone breaks something or gets hurt, I'm not getting sued." Jimmy signed reluctantly, but I could tell he hated every second. It wasn't the legal contract, just my house rules until the real one was drafted. The following weekend was a family dinner at my parents' house. I went because I was tired of being painted as the villain. When I arrived, Mom was already setting out extra plates, cheerful as ever. "I'm so glad you came. Maybe we can all just relax tonight." Relaxing lasted about 10 minutes. I was in the kitchen getting a drink when I heard my name from the living room. Heather's voice floated in. soft but confident. After the honeymoon, we'll stay in the guest room for a bit. It's perfect until we find something. Jimmy laughed. Yeah, it's temporary. He won't even notice we're there. The glass nearly slipped out of my hand. I stepped into the room. Excuse me, what did you just say? Heather froze mid-sentence. Oh, Jordan, You were just planning to move into my house. Jimmy stood up, hands raised. It's not like that. It's just for a few months. Rent's crazy right now. You've got extra rooms. I use them for guests, not freeloaders, I said. Mom came in from the dining room, clearly catching the tail end. What's all this? They're telling people they're moving into my house, I said flatly. Mom's expression brightened. Oh, that's a wonderful idea. You have so much space, Jordan. It'll help them get started. Mom, no. I didn't agree to that. Ever. Mom's voice rose. You're seriously going to make your own brother struggle when you've got 4 bedrooms? I'm not his landlord or babysitter. He's an adult. Heather's eyes welled up like she'd practiced it. We just thought you'd understand. You're so independent. You've got everything figured out. We just need a little time. Then figure it out yourselves, I said. That's when Dad spoke up, tone firm. Son, this isn't about money. It's about family. You have a roof. They don't. They had a roof, I said, glaring at Jimmy. Then he lost the deposit on another dumb idea, didn't he? Jimmy's face went red. That's not what happened. Really? I asked. Because somehow, every time you invest in something, it disappears. Jimmy widened his eyes. I said, if they think they're moving in afterward, then this reception shouldn't happen at all. The room went dead silent. Jimmy looked at me like he couldn't believe I'd said it out loud. Mom's jaw dropped. Heather sobbed harder. You wouldn't, Dad said. Try me, I replied. I've been more than fair. You all keep pushing. Push one more time and the answer won't be a warning. It'll be final. No one spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking in the corner. I put my glass in the sink and walked out without another word. They'd already crossed the line. I wasn't letting them cross another. The next morning, I sat at my desk with my coffee and pulled up my lawyer's number. If my family wasn't going to respect boundaries out of decency, then I'd make sure they respected them legally. When Thomas picked up, I explained everything from the reception deal to the moving instant. He didn't even hesitate. You need a non-tenant agreement, Jordan, something that states no one has residency rights, storage rights, or any claim to your property. It protects you if they ever try to pull a squatter stunt. Perfect, I said. Write it like they're already planning something. By noon, he emailed me the draft. It was exactly what I needed. Short, clear, and impossible to twist. It didn't even need their signatures to take effect, but I printed 2 copies anyway, just to make the point. When I offered it later, they refused to sign, which honestly just confirmed why I needed it in the first place. 1 copy went to my lawyer, 1 stayed in my records, and I left it at that. I figured maybe the family dinner blow-up had done its job. For 3 days, silence. No calls, no texts, no guilt trips. It almost felt like peace. But in my family, peace never lasts. By the weekend, it started again. Mom showed up unannounced, standing in my driveway when I pulled in from work. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Dad leaned against the car next to hers, arms crossed, waiting for backup. I didn't even get out of the car yet when she started. Jordan, honey, please don't cancel the reception. I sighed. I didn't cancel anything. She wiped her eyes, ignoring that. Jimmy is heartbroken. Heather's family already bought flights. You can't do this to them. Mom, they tried to move into my house without permission. That's not a small thing. You're making this harder than it has to be, Dad said. It's one evening, Jordan. Don't let pride ruin the family. It's not pride, I said. It's boundaries, something you've never respected. Mom wiped her eyes. You used to do anything for your brother. What happened to that, Jordan? He grew up, I said, and unlocked the door. Dad scoffed. You think you're better than everyone just because you have a degree and a mortgage? I turned back to face him. No, I think I'm smarter for learning from your mistakes. That's the difference. And his face tightened like I'd said something unforgivable. Mom broke down crying, saying I was heartless and forgetting where I came from. Where I came from, I said slowly, is the same place you keep trying to drag me back to chaos. I walked inside, locked the door, and left them standing there. I could still hear Mom crying through the door, telling Dad I'd lost my soul. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from Jimmy. Mom said you're going too far. I told her you'd come around once you cooled off. We're family. You don't need lawyers for family. I didn't even respond. I just forwarded that message to my lawyer and said, make the agreement ironclad. That night, I sat on the back patio staring at the pool lights, thinking how different everything had become. For years, I'd worked nonstop, saving, grinding, building, while Jimmy coasted, and everyone called him the dreamer. Now, when I finally had something solid, they wanted to claim it like I was holding it for them. I was done. The next morning, I made a list, physical boundaries and digital ones. I called my locksmith to schedule a full lock replacement. I set up consultations for a new security system. If they were going to test me, I'd make sure the answer was no in every way possible. The house got a quiet energy that day. Not empty, not lonely, just secure. For once, I felt like I was in control of my own life again. That afternoon, Mom called again. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. She jumped straight in. Jordan, your father and I talked. We think you should give this one more chance. Don't cancel, please. Jimmy's been through enough with his job loss. You don't understand how hard it's been for him. Mom, I've been through hard times too, I said. I just didn't make everyone else pay for them. Why are you so cold, she asked. You used to be so generous. Generous doesn't mean blind, I said. There was a long silence before she whispered, You'll regret this one day. I hung up. By the end of the week, I had the non-tenant agreement signed on my end, the locksmith scheduled, and a delivery date for my new cameras. I wasn't waiting for permission anymore. They were trying to see if they could bend me again, make me that same quiet, compliant son who said yes to keep the peace. But peace built on guilt isn't peace. It's manipulation. That night, as I checked my calendar reminders and set everything in motion, I knew what had to happen next. No more verbal deals. No more trusting their word. If this reception happened, it would be on my terms, locked, monitored, and legally protected. They thought they were testing my patience. They didn't realize I was already testing them. And I was done giving second chances. 1 week before the reception, I decided to end the waiting game. I sent Jimmy a message that morning. I need the final lawyer-drafted contract signed by you and Heather, the liability insurance certificate naming me as additional insured, and the final guest list by tomorrow. No documents, no event. He read it right away, but didn't reply. Typical. I waited until noon, then called. He didn't answer. Heather texted a few hours later instead. Jordan, please don't make this harder. This is supposed to be the happiest time of our lives. I stared at the message for a while before typing back. Then follow the rules you agreed to. The next morning, things went from annoying to absurd. Around 10 o'clock, my office receptionist buzzed me on the intercom. Jordan, there's a woman here asking for you. Says she's your mother? I froze. You're kidding. I wish I was. She's crying and yelling something about a wedding. I rushed to the lobby. There she was, eyes red, clutching her purse like it was part of her act. The entire front desk staff was staring. Mom, what are you doing here? I hissed quietly. I had no choice, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You're tearing this family apart over a piece of paper.
Mom, we're not doing this here, I said through gritted teeth.
Then where, Jordan? You keep shutting us out, she snapped. You're making the whole family look bad. Security approached before I could answer. My boss appeared behind them, silent but watching. I leaned close and said quietly, "This isn't love, it's control. You hate that you can't pull my strings anymore." I finally guided her to her car and said quietly, "Go home. I'll handle this." When I got back inside, my boss just shook his head. Family drama. "Yeah," I muttered, "the Olympic version." He chuckled. "Take care of it. Don't let it mess with your work." I nodded. I wasn't going to. That night, Dad showed up at my door. No warning, just knocking like he owned the place. I opened the door halfway, blocking the entrance. "Dad." "Son," he sighed dramatically, "I came here man to man. You need to end this nonsense and stop humiliating your family." "Setting boundaries isn't humiliation," I said. He crossed his arms. "Keep acting like this and don't expect to be in the will." I actually laughed. "What will? The one you already spent helping Jimmy start those failed businesses?" His face wrined. "You're out of line." "No," I said calmly. "I'm just finally telling the truth." By now, I was completely numb to the theatrics. Every time I stood firm, they escalated. They didn't want peace. They wanted control. The next 2 days were quiet again, which only made me more suspicious. Then, on Thursday evening, I got an email from Jimmy. No apology, no greeting, just attachments. The fully executed contract and the insurance certificate. Finally, I thought, great, maybe now I can relax. Nope. 10 minutes later, my phone started buzzing non-stop. Jimmy had sent a mass family group text. "Despite Jordan's threats and constant mistrust, we've agreed to his strict demands just to keep the peace. It's sad that property and paperwork mean more to him than family, but we'll go along." Within minutes, replies started pouring in. "Jordan, really? This is disappointing. You've changed. You're doing the right thing. Don't let them guilt you." Half the family turned against me. Half supported me. It was chaos. I let the group chat spiral for about 10 minutes, then replied once. "I'm providing my home for free, covering utilities, and taking legal responsibility for 100 guests. The only thing I asked for is respect and protection for my property. If that makes me heartless, so be it." I left the chat after that. No more arguing. Later that night, my cousin texted privately. "You handled that like a boss. Everyone's talking about it." "Good," I replied. "Let them." By the next day, I'd made my final preparations. I wasn't taking any chances. I called a licensed private security company and hired 2 off-duty police officers through them for the day of the reception. They'd monitor the gate, check IDs against the guest list, and make sure no one overstayed their welcome. Then I called my best friend, David. I told him the whole situation. He laughed for a solid 30 seconds. "Man, your brother sounds like a full-time headache," he said. "More like a lifelong migraine," I replied. David offered to stay with me during the event. "Me and Sarah will come over early, help keep things under control. You're not facing this circus alone." "Appreciate it," I said. "I'll supply food and coffee. You bring patience." Deal. When I hung up, I double-checked everything. Cameras, contracts, insurance, and locks. Every part of me was done worrying. I didn't feel anxious anymore. The kind of calm you get when you've already accepted the outcome. I knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened next, it would be the last time anyone tried to cross me in my own home. The morning of the reception started earlier than I wanted. I woke up at 6:30 to the sound of voices in the backyard. Vendors. They weren't supposed to show up until 9 o'clock. When I walked outside, 3 delivery trucks were already parked along my driveway, and half a dozen people were unloading equipment like they owned the place. "Who told you to start now?" I asked the man dragging tables across the lawn. Heather," he said. "She said the homeowner approved early setup." "Yeah," I said. "The actual homeowner didn't." He blinked. "So, should we leave?" "You can leave the equipment and come back at 9 o'clock, like your contract says." They shuffled awkwardly, muttering something about bridezillas. I didn't care. By 8 o'clock, my best friend David arrived with his wife, Sarah. They brought coffee and backup energy. "Morning, Captain Calm," David joked, setting down a box of muffins. "Ready for the circus?" "Circus started 2 hours early," I said, pointing toward the yard. He looked outside and whistled. "Yeah, that tracks. You'd think they were setting up Coachella." At 8:45, a woman in a headset appeared at my front door. Heather's so-called wedding planner. She smiled like a car salesperson. "Hi, I'm here to set up the bridal suite." "The what?" I asked. "The bridal suite. The bride needs a space to get ready. We're thinking your master bedroom would be perfect." Before I could even reply, David stepped in. "Not happening," he said, calm but firm. "There's a hotel booked for that. You can leave now." She blinked at him, then turned back to me. "Is he serious?" "Completely," I said. Her smile twitched, and she walked off in a huff, muttering something about control issues. By 10 o'clock, the catering team arrived. They were fine, professional, on schedule. But then came another problem. The chairs. I counted them myself. 150. I'd only approved 100. I stopped the workers mid-unload. "Take 50 back." They showed me an order signed by Jimmy. "He said you changed your mind." Then he lied, removed them. They grumbled, but they did it. Next came the sound system. It was massive. Giant speakers, subwoofers, DJ booth, the works. The noise ordinance in my area was strict. "Who ordered this?" I asked the delivery guy. He shrugged. "The groom said it was okay." David stepped forward. "Nope, load it back up. They can use their original setup or nothing." By noon, the yard was finally under control again. Every table aligned, every vendor checked. I even took photos of everything for proof. Around 4 o'clock, guests started arriving. The 2 off-duty officers I hired stood at the gate with the guest list. They turned away anyone not listed. You could hear the grumbling from across the lawn. "Wow, Jordan really went full security guard mode," one aunt whispered. Another cousin responded quietly. "Can you blame him? Jimmy's been pushing his luck for months. At least someone got it." By 5 o'clock, the reception started. And for the first hour, it actually went okay. The weather was perfect. The food smelled incredible. For a brief moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd behave. But peace doesn't last long in my family. At 6:15, I was refilling my drink when I overheard my Aunt Carol say, "So, when are you 2 moving in with Jordan? Such a nice setup here." I froze mid-step. Jimmy laughed. "Soon as we get back from the honeymoon." "It'll be nice to have a real home base," Heather added sweetly. "Just until we get back on our feet. Jordan has been so generous." I set my glass down and walked over. "Funny," I said. "I don't remember agreeing to that." Heather blinked, pretending to be surprised. "Oh, Jordan, I didn't realize you were right there." "Clearly," I said. The rest of the night was tense. People kept sneaking glances at me, whispering. The air had shifted. Half the guests siding with them, half silently supporting me. By 9:45, I'd had enough. I gave David a look, and he nodded. At exactly 10 p.m., I went inside, opened the control panel, and flipped the breakers connected to the backyard lighting and sound system. The music stopped mid-song. The lights went out, leaving only the pool glow and a few string bulbs. Murmurs spread fast. What happened? Did the power go out? "No," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Reception's over. Thank you for coming, Please exit through the front gate. Guests started gathering their things, some annoyed, others relieved. The officers directed traffic, making sure no one lingered. Jimmy stormed over, face red. "Are you serious right now? The party's not even done." "It ended at 10 o'clock, I said calmly. "That's what you signed." Heather's eyes filled with angry tears. "You made us look like fools in front of everyone." I stared at her evenly. "You're lucky I hosted it at all." Jimmy opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. "Don't. Just leave." They glared at me for a moment before walking away, Heather muttering something under her breath. By 10:30, the backyard was empty except for me, David, and Sarah. The cleaning crew arrived quietly, working fast under the dim lights. When the last chair was packed up and the last bag of trash hauled off, I locked every door, checked every camera, and stood in the middle of my living room, surrounded by silence. The house finally felt like mine again. I knew one thing. They weren't done testing me, but neither was I. 2 weeks later, I was at home finishing up some work reports when I heard the sound of an engine outside. A deep, heavy rumble that didn't belong on my quiet street. I looked out the front window and froze. A U-Haul truck was backing into my driveway. Behind it, my parents' car. And there they were, Jimmy and Heather, climbing out like they owned the place. Boxes already stacked on the curb. I didn't even feel surprised, just tired. By the time I stepped outside, they were already unloading. Heather pointed toward the garage, all smiles. "We're just putting a few things in here for now. Temporary storage while we find a place." Jimmy gave a nervous laugh. "Yeah, man, we just need a couple of weeks." "Stop," I said flatly. "You're not storing anything here." I looked at all of them. 4 people standing in my driveway, like I was the unreasonable one. "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" I said to my parents. "You came here as backup." Mom looked guilty for a second, but covered it quickly. "We just didn't want another fight. Let them put their things down, then you can talk like adults." "Here's me talking like an adult," I said. "Get the boxes back in the truck." Right then, a familiar car pulled up. David got out, followed by my lawyer, Thomas, holding a folder. I hadn't called them that morning. They'd been planning to stop by anyway, to finalize some security documents. The timing couldn't have been better. Thomas walked straight up to Jimmy and handed him a letter. "Mr. Wilson, this is a formal trespass notice. You have no legal right to occupy or store property here. Any refusal to leave will result in police intervention." Heather's smile dropped immediately. "You're joking. Thomas adjusted his glasses. "I'm not." Jimmy looked at me like I'd betrayed him. "You actually called a lawyer for your own brother." "I called him because I know exactly what you're capable of," I said, "and I'm not falling for it this time." Heather's voice started rising. "We have nowhere to go. You're heartless." "No," I said calmly. "I'm prepared." For a few seconds, nobody said a word. Then Jimmy stepped forward, his tone sharp. "You think you're so much better because you've got a nice house and some money. You're pathetic." I motioned to the driveway cameras. "Keep talking, you're being recorded." That shut him up. When they still refused to leave, I pulled out my phone and called the police. "Hi," I said calmly. "I have trespassers on my property. I have legal documentation on site." 2 patrol cars arrived within 15 minutes. The officers were polite but firm. They looked at Thomas's documents, confirmed my ownership, and then turned to Jimmy. "Sir, you need to pack up and go. You cannot store anything here without permission." Heather tried crying again, but the officers weren't moved. "We'll be filing a report if this happens again," one of them said. Eventually, the truck door slammed shut. Jimmy muttered something under his breath I couldn't catch, and the U-Haul rolled down the driveway. My parents followed in silence. That evening, my phone started lighting up nonstop. Jimmy had taken the drama digital. "Jordan threw us out with a lawyer. We have nowhere to go. After losing everything, trying to invest for our future, he made his own brother homeless. The pity parade was in full swing. I didn't post a thing. Instead, I opened my email, attached every single document, contracts, messages, photos, and sent it to the entire family. My subject line? For clarity. I offered my property for free and requested legal protection for it. They ignored every rule, tried to move in twice, and today attempted to store their belongings without permission. These are the facts. No emotion, no anger, just the truth. Within hours, replies started rolling in. Aunts, uncles, cousins, some apologizing, others admitting they'd been misled. Jimmy's story collapsed faster than he could type. A week later, word spread that he and Heather had moved in with my parents. Mom bragged about helping the kids rebuild. It lasted less than a month. Apparently, Heather tried selling some of Mom's jewelry online for quick cash. When she got caught, she called it a misunderstanding. That was enough for Dad to finally kick them out. They ended up bouncing between short-term rentals. Then, nearly a year later, I got a message from Mom. Heather left him. Another bad investment. Thought you should know. I read it, then replied simply, hope they both learned something this time. A few days later, Dad called asking for help fixing their roof. I gave him a contractor's number and wished him luck. That was the last real conversation we had. Now the house is quiet again. My camera's humbly at night, lights glowing over the yard that used to be their fantasy venue. People think standing your ground ruins families. It doesn't. It just shows who was standing with you and who was standing on you. And for the first time, I'm standing exactly where I belong.